When moving to the Fargo-Moorhead area, a lot of people always think of the income tax difference between the state of North Dakota and the state of Minnesota. But there's actually a lot more differences of how far your money goes if you're buying a house in Minnesota versus North Dakota and vice versa. This video is going to be a little bit different than my other videos on my channel, but I'm going to break down the cost difference by someone who is buying a $300,000 house in Minnesota compared to North Dakota, the income tax, the property tax, how big of a house you're going to get. So I'm just going to be breaking those down and comparing them just so you can see what the cost difference actually is. And obviously income taxes are going to be higher in Minnesota than North Dakota, but the properties are a little bit different too. So if you have any more questions after the follow-up of this video, you can just shoot me an email, or I'm going to be going over some of the houses that are actually for sale here in Fargo and in Moorhead and comparing them. If you want to see any of those houses in person, I can get you into any of them. I'm Sykora, your Fargo real estate agent, so I'm going to jump right into this one, comparing what a $300,000 house is like here in Fargo versus North Dakota and all the differences. First up, I just did a basic search here of houses listed from $275,000 to $325,000 in Moorhead versus Fargo, and we're just going to compare a little bit. One thing I want you to take a look at is the square footage. So you can see there's 25 currently for sale here in Moorhead in that price range. If we can go to the list here, just take a look at the square footage. You can see 1,900, 1,900, 2,500, 1,700. That one's almost 3,000, 2,000, 2,300, 2,200, 3,000 again, 2,700. So these are generally pretty big houses. Obviously, excluding the new construction ones, these top two were built in 2024. Basically new construction, we can see the older ones like 67 is almost 2,600 square feet. So really big houses. Then the same thing, and we'll look in Fargo and we can see there is currently 30 for sale. Oh, go to the map here. So 30 houses for sale in that 275 to 325 price range. And again, take a look at the square footage. 1,800, 2,100, 1,800, 2,200, 2,600 on an older house, 2,300. So these houses in Fargo are a little bit smaller than they are in Moorhead. And none of these first ones were new construction. So that's the difference, big difference between Fargo and Moorhead, is that in Moorhead, you're gonna be able to get a bigger house and a better house for the same price than you would in Fargo. Now, obviously the income taxes are very different, as we'll jump later in this video, but that's kind of the general conciseness and the general breakdown is that if you don't watch any of the rest of this video, just know this: you'll get a bigger house in Moorhead, but you'll have to pay more taxes. So we'll just compare a couple of these. Okay, let's go to this one. This one's 315, 1,800 square feet here in Fargo. This is not my listing, to disclose that too. But pretty decently updated. Nice little house on a cul-de-sac. Does have baseboard heat and wall AC. But I mean, a pretty typical house, right? So we'll hop over to Moorhead too, so we see what we can find here. So I mean, look at this one. Okay, this one's at $319,900. This one's a new house built in 2024. Pretty much that same as that other house. It's a little bit bigger, same amount of bedrooms and bathrooms. Little bit 400 more square feet, built in 2024, so it's a new house, obviously more expensive. And we can see $319,900. Now if you go back to the other one, $314,900, so you're paying $5,000 more for a house that has one more bathroom and about 400 more square feet in Moorhead. This house in Moorhead, if this was in Fargo, it'd probably be closer to $350,000. So it's just something to keep in mind. You're gonna get a bigger house, a better house. You could get a newer house in Moorhead for the same price that you would pay for an older house, a smaller house in Fargo. But as we head to our income taxes here, this is where the big difference is, obviously, and this is what a lot of people talk about. We can see it's 0% up to $48,000 if you're single, married up to $78,000, or separately up to $40,000, up to $60,000 head of household. That's huge. And the highest tax bracket in North Dakota is 2.5%, we can see here. But that's for people making over $240,000, $290,000, over $150,000, over $265,000 is 2.5%. The other bracket's 1.95%, which will be what most people will probably fall in, that 1.9%. That 1.95% bracket, but we can see if we look to Minnesota's, this is obviously a big difference. The lowest bracket in Minnesota is 5.35%. The highest bracket in North Dakota is lower than the highest bracket in Minnesota. And we can see how high it gets, up to almost 10% for the highest bracket on all of these. But it's kind of 6.8, 7.85, depending on obviously how much income you have because of the income tax brackets, but that's huge. So you're gonna be able to get a bigger house, a nicer house, a newer house but you're gonna be paying a lot more income tax. So this is really something to consider based off obviously how much money you make, how many taxes you would be paying in North Dakota, and if the bigger house at that price is worth it for you, obviously in North Dakota and Minnesota. So another thing is the property taxes. Generally, the property taxes are pretty similar. There's not a huge difference, but we'll hop to those now. We'll see here in Fargo, property taxes are around $3,600 a year in Fargo. Now, one disclaimer, this is not including special assessments. Obviously, newer areas are gonna have specials. I have a whole video breaking down specials if you're unsure what they are or if you're relocating here to this area. But there's a lot of different things with specials, but this is just for the property tax. $3,600 annually here in Fargo. And obviously North Dakota, a lot of it is rural. Fargo has some of the highest property taxes in North Dakota, but obviously there's a lot more stuff in Fargo than there is in the middle of nowhere, North Dakota. So around $3,600 a year, 1.2% rate is kind of the average. When we can hop to Minnesota, it's around $3,300 a year. So Minnesota actually has that slightly lower property tax than North Dakota, but it's not a huge difference of a $300 on a $300,000 house. So just something to keep in mind. But again, the houses in Moorhead, you can get a bigger, better, and nicer and newer house for the same price in Fargo. And that is reflected on this is the median estimated property value. Minnesota and Moorhead is around $280,000, while Fargo's is $320,000. So obviously that's a big change in Fargo compared to Moorhead on the price of a house. So you can get a better house, but you're gonna be paying more taxes. Now, obviously, keeping all of this in mind, it's very dependent on your own situation of what's best for you. And there's great things in Moorhead and there's great things about Fargo, and you just need to determine what's best for you and what you want in a house and what you want for your life and that sort of thing. So another thing with this to compare is to pull up this graph. So this is the annual cost comparison, only doing a couple different categories: the state income tax, property tax, and the mortgage payment on a $300,000 house with a 6.5% interest rate on a 30-year loan with 20% down. So this is gonna be your annual cost difference. Your mortgage payment is essentially the same because it's a $300,000 house. Interest rate's the same. Property tax, basically the same. But we can look at the state income tax difference, $22,000 basically a year in Fargo versus almost $27,000 here in Moorhead. And this is based off someone who is making $75,000 a year just for this graph, because that's around that average point of income here in the Fargo-Moorhead area. But around $6 more grand in Moorhead yearly for a house that same price, if we can pull up that one I was just on, for another bedroom, 400 more square feet, and a brand new house. So looking at it that way, it makes it seem not that bad, and Moorhead might actually be a good option. And Moorhead is a great option for people who are looking to move to this area, but it's something to keep in mind based off how much income you make and based off what your goals are with your real estate move. I'm not really giving advice, or I'm not trying to steer you one way towards Moorhead or Fargo. I've lived in personally both Moorhead and Fargo, and I've loved both of them, but you need to just choose based off what's best for your personal situation. So this was just a little bit of a video breaking down the difference between a $300,000 house here in Fargo and a $300,000 house here in Moorhead. If you have any more questions on the real estate market or houses for sale, or you want to go see these houses in this video, reach out to me and I'd be happy to give you more information or to go on a tour. All my contact information is in the description below, and thanks for watching this video.